Okay, everyone. I'm going to start the meeting. It is 6:30. So I know we're waiting for one or two people to join on Teams, but we're going to have to start the meeting, please. So welcome everyone to South Ribble for the Central Lancashire Strategic Planning Joint Advisory Committee. Can I first of all ask for someone to nominate a chair for this meeting? Alistair, nominators.
Can I nominate yourself?
Thank you. Can it be seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Tomlinson. I will take that. Can we go to the vote on that, please? All in favour? Thank you very much. Well done, everyone. That was a good start. Right, okay. I've got a script here, so I'm going to stick to it. Good evening. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending the meeting of the Central Lancashire Strategic Joint Advisory Committee on Wednesday, the 7th of February 2024. For those who don't know me, my name is Councillor James Flannery, and I will be chairing this meeting of the JAC. Committee members and any members of the public attending are reminded that the first part of this meeting is being recorded and streamed live on YouTube. If you are joining us via Microsoft Teams and you wish to speak, please raise your hand and I will invite you in. For those here at the Civic Centre, please can you ensure that all mobile phones are either switched off or on silent mode. We are not anticipating a fire alarm drill, so if any goes off, you should leave via the fire exit and wait in the car park at the rear of the building. Can I ask if everyone can introduce themselves, starting from my left and going round one by one? Kim.
I'm Kim Rennie, Interim Deputy Chief Executive for Chorley and South Ribble.
Gail Wooden, I'm the new Director of Planning and Property for Chorley and South Ribble.
I'm Catherine Greenwood, I'm the Principal Plan Officer at Chorley Council.
Ben Story, Democratic Services Officer.
Councillor Caleb Tomlinson, I'm the Chair of the Planning Committee at South Ribble Borough Council, thankfully.
County Councillor Alan Cullens, representing Chorley.
Councillor Craig Southern, Borough Councillor for Crosston, Moles, Jackson South.
Councillor Margaret France, Borough Councillor at Chorley for Chorley North East Ward.
Chris Hayward, Director of Development and Housing, Preston City Council.
Good evening. Councillor Javed Iqbal, Chair of Planning at Preston and subbing for our Cabinet Member. Thank you.
Lane Stringfellow, Councillor for Lostock Hall Ward and Vice Chair of Planning at South Ribble.
Good evening, Michael Green, County Councillor for Moss Side and Farrington Division and Cabinet Member for Health and Wellbeing.
Mark Hudson, Head of Planning and Transport with the County Council.
Jim Askew, Principal Transport Planner at Lancashire County Council.
Councillor Alistair Morwood, Exec Member for Planning and Development, Chorley Council.
Councillor Alistair Bradley, Leader of Chorley Council.
Lizzie Hindle, Head of Planning and Enforcement at South Ribble. Catherine Thomas, Planning Manager at South Ribble.
Benjamin Vickers, Principal Planner at South Ribble.
Emma Price, the Planning Policy Officer for the Central Lancashire Local Plan.
Zoe Whiteside, Head of Spatial Planning, Chorley Council.
Carolyn Williams, Planning Policy Manager, Preston City Council.
Thank you, everyone. We've also got some people on Teams and we've got Councillor Mary Green in the room. So I won't ask you to introduce yourselves, but thank you for attending. That was a lot of people, wasn't it? I have to look. Oh, yeah. Okay, so let's get going. We want to stick to the agenda and the time, please. So I'd like to take this opportunity to formally welcome the new Director of Planning and Property for South Ribble and Chorley, Gail Wotton. Welcome, Gail. And this is her first meeting. Although she was unable to attend, I'd also like to note that Councillor Amber Afzal is a new Cabinet Member for Planning and Regulation at Preston and will be joining us in future meetings. Okay, thank you, everyone. So we're down to item number 3, which is apologies for absence. Ben, can you confirm, please?
Yes, Chair. So it's just Councillor Afzal, as already been mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, item number 4, excuse me, declarations of interest. Members are reminded of their responsibilities to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of matters contained in this agenda. Are there any interests to declare? None. Ben, make a note of that, please. Okay, item number 5, minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of December 2023. I have the minutes of our meeting here on the 4th of December in front of me. Can I have a proposer, please?
Chair.
Councillor Caleb, thank you. Tomlinson, there's a proposer and a seconder, Councillor Alistair Bradley. Can we all vote and move them, please? Thank you, they're moved. Okay, good, we're doing well. Item number 6, strategic transport assessment for the local plan. We have representatives from Jacobs and Lancashire County Council, which is Marcus in the room, but you're saying you're on Teams, but you're here. Are Jacobs actually online? Yes, they are, yeah. And they're going to deliver a presentation and answer any questions. Just remember, we have 10 minutes for this. Who have we got from Jacobs, please?
Hello.
Just quickly introduce. We've got Sabine Carambil from Jacobs on the line on Teams there. Thank you, Sabine. If I can hand over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Hello, can everyone hear me?
Just.
Is it clear enough now? Clearer now? Can you hear me?
We can, but you.
All right.
We can, but you're. We can, yes, but I think you'll have to speak up, please.
Yeah, sure. I'll try my best. Right. So yeah, as Richard has introduced me, so I'm Sabine Karimbil representing from Jacobs. So Jacobs have been commissioned to provide transport-based evidence to support the development of the new local plan. And I'm the technical lead for this piece of work. Is that clear enough, or should I make it more loud?
Sorry, would you like to?
Yeah. Hi, Sabine. Yeah, we can hear you fine. Are you able to share your screen so that we can see the slides?
Yes, sure. Yeah, I'll share my screen now. Hopefully everyone can see the screen now. Right.
Yes, that's great. Thank you. Carry on.
Yep. Fine. So the agenda for today's meeting is we're gonna just go give an overview about the transport-based evidence methodology and go through the timeline of what the Stage 0 program is and go a bit more detailed in the multi-criteria analysis which is being undertaken as part of Stage 0 assessment works. So I'll just move to the next slide. So this just gives an overview of the full transport-based evidence methodology. So the transport-based assessment is being undertaken into 3 stages. Now, Stage 0 involves undertaking a multi-criteria assessment to support the local plan's preferred development strategy, and a more detailed assessment using the traffic models will be undertaken in Stage 1 and Stage 2, where we would be doing baseline assessment and identifying the existing network issues and potential impact of proposed sites. The Stage 2 would focus more on producing transport strategies based on the design and provide approach to address the issues that has been identified in the previous stages. And this will be feeding into the transport-based evidence reporting and the viability assessment report. So it's just I'm not going into the technicality of it, but happy to answer any questions if you have. But so currently we are doing the Stage 0, which is the multi-criteria analysis. So I'll go into the next slide. This is just the timeline for the Stage 0 program, where we are undertaking the multi-criteria assessment for from transport perspective for each site, and then we'll also be undertaking a bit of a assessment of the traffic models that will be used in the Stage 1 and Stage 2 works. So we're hoping to complete all the work for Stage 0 by second week of March and the Stage 1A by end of March. So right, as part of the multi-criteria assessment, we have identified 7 metrics from transport perspective. This is to kind of help provide a bit of a support in identifying the preferred strategy or the preferred sites. So this will go along with the other assessment that is being undertaken by the council. So I'll just go through each of the sites and then we'll have a bit of detail with each metric. So the first one is average commuter travel mode split. So what we're trying to do this is we're trying to identify this what is a method of travel to work for each of the site based on the census data. So we're using the census 2011 data. We have got 2021 data, but that is after review that has been identified to be not very representative of the current situation. So we've been kind of using the 2011 census data, and what we would be doing is that we'll be coming up with thresholds in order to identify what is the percentage of commute trips by car for each of the sites, and this will be benchmarked with the various the existing method of travel to work by the various Lancashire districts. So currently we've got that like around 77% of on average people travel to work by car. So we'll provide a threshold based on an aspirational one, which would be assessed as a green one, and then an amber and a red one, where the maximum number of people are actually commuting by car. Any questions, or should I just move to the next slide?
Just keep presenting.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. So the next metric is proximity to current sustainable transport service. So what we're going to do is that each site will be assessed based on what is the how they are accessible by public transport and active travel. So we have, as part of this assessment, we have identified key attractors within the study area and then use a software called Podaris, which is a web-based platform which is used for the high-level multimodal transport assessment. And what we would do is that we'll generate a public transport accessibility isochrone, which would take into consideration the public transport journey time, wait time, walk time to stop or station, and then we would use this isochrone as an identifier to see and assess each of the sites how best they are accessible to public transports and active modes. Next one is metric 3, which is access to proposed local transport scheme. So most of our metrics are based on the current situation, but it is also necessary to ensure that consideration has been given to locations where there have been planned transport interventions. So these ratings are determined by counting the number of proposed schemes within the vicinity of the site, and it would also will also give some weightage to more sustainable transport schemes like bus schemes and any kind of bus lane improvements and stuff like that. Existing high volume flow capacity hotspots. So what the intention for this metric is to identify the pinch points in the highway network. So we have certain criteria such as the volume to capacity ratio and delays, which would be which would be used to identify the critical links and pinch points within the study area, and these would be considered for each of the site, what is the proximity to these critical links, and then they will be RAG assessed based on the combinations of this identified metrics. Metric 5. So this metric will assess the magnitude of trips that will be generated by each of the sites. So as a standard practice, we generally use the TRIX database to come up with the trip rates. So our initial trip rates will be based on the TRIX database, but we are also taking other sources such as national trip ends, local trip rates to benchmark this TRIX database trip rates. We are also looking into trip rates which would be looked for a certain period of time. So we want to see how that has changed pre and post-COVID, those kind of things will be also taken into consideration. Once we have the initial trip rates from TREX, a further adjustment will be undertaken to take into account internalization rate, which is basically to see how self-sustained is as a particular site. So if it's a mixed site, you have it's more self-sustained than an only an exclusive residential or employment site. Then also the localization rate based on how near it is, or what is the proximity to another urban center, or any other employment center. So it would be resulting in a shorter trips and more localized trips than long distance trips. And then we'll also be taking into consideration the mode split. So that will take into consideration how accessible the site is to sustainable modes and active modes, and also take into consideration the existing percentage of car driver within that area. Proximity to existing settlements. So what this will take into consideration is basically we have identified key urban centers, and again, this is related to the previous assessment, which talks about the trip rates, how close it is to an urban center, and therefore it kind of reduces the short distance trip. So we have identified key major attractors within the study area, and then it would look into consideration how close it is to these identified key centers, and then they will be again drag assessed based on that. And that's the last one. So we'll look at the site vehicular accessibility. So there are two things that will be taken into consideration. We'll look at how the existing vehicular accessibility is for all the sites, and it will also take into consideration how, from the safety perspective, and for that we're using stats 19, which gives us an overview of the number of accidents and the type of accidents and the number of casualties that have been within the vicinity of the area. So these two criteria will be taken into consideration, and then all the sites will be again RAG assessed against these ones. I think that's all I have.
Okay, Simon,
take questions.
do you want to then? Thanks, Simon. Appreciate that. Yeah. It's always difficult to present when you've got people in a room like this as well. So thanks for your presentation. Any questions initially? I'm not sort of encouraging questions because I know it's for information as well. But is there anyone with any pertinent questions? Councillor Michael Green.
Thanks, Chairman. Can I thank you for the presentation? Can I just ask a question about what data we are using for this? So the point was made it was based upon the census from 2011.
Yeah.
Obviously, some time has passed since then. We've had a growth in the population across central Lancashire. There's been significant developments across the central Lancashire area. There's been changes in travel modes, as would generally be. But then, of course, we've had the pandemic and the impact that has had on travel patterns since, people's working patterns, etc. So how has that been incorporated into this? How have we incorporated issues such as the environment and the greater emphasis on that, and the shift which we should be taking towards more sustainable methods of transport, so away from car use by encouraging greater use of cycling, walking, buses, trains, etc., and the need for better public transport moving forwards to encourage people away from car use in the future. So how have all those points been picked up? And if they haven't already, how will they be picked up moving forwards? Thanks, Chairman.
Great, thanks, Michael. Sabin, there's about 4 questions in there, I believe. So do you want to take them as they are, please? And then, is Sabin taking the Marcus, or are you guys? Yeah, go on, Sabin, it's over to you.
Right. I think the first part of the question is about using the 2011 data instead of the new one. So I think that's the best available source, to get, a data set at that level to get the, the journey time patterns and stuff like that. We have reviewed the 2021 data, and what it has come out is that it's a bit skewed and not representative of what it is in the current travel patterns probably because it was during the lockdown period, or the post-COVID period, and that has changed since the lockdown period. And so it's not like we're just including the 2011 data for assessing our sites. So that's just one criteria to kind of establish what is the mode of travel to various workplaces, which I assume, it's not changed drastically from what has happened, but yeah, obviously there has been network changes, there have been population changes and demographic changes, and that is being assessed by, it will be assessed in our next stage, where we will be using the updated traffic models, which incorporates the most recent updates of travel pattern, demographic data, and all other forecasts. So that will be taken into consideration. So this is just a very high level assessment we're doing at this point. Because I don't if that answers the first part of the question about the 2011 data. So.
Okay, thanks, Simon. Michael, are you happy with what you've heard there?
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. I welcome the additional data that we're going to look at, but I am concerned that the core data that we're using is 13 years old, and a lot has changed in that time. So I think we absolutely need to look at up-to-date data. I appreciate the issue with the 2021 census, and that will definitely give us skewed data due to the time when that was taken. But I do think we need to incorporate up-to-date data, travel patterns, population, new sites, etc.
Okay, thanks, Michael. We'll sort of take this to the last question on this, but I'm going to hand over to Marcus, who's sitting right next to you, and who's going to hand over to. Yeah, well done, everyone there. So.
Thanks. I just wanted to come in just on the point Michael was making there, that just to remember that this is a stage 0 of the assessment, and there is a stage 1, stage 2 to come, where we will start to use the strategic model, as Sabin's explained, and that uses the more current data. So the stage 0 assessment is effectively to evaluate the identified sites to support the determination of the preferred sites, and that effectively allows us to go into stage 1 with a clear set of preferred sites to cut down the process, rather than multiple stage 1s to evaluate multiple options. So by the stage 0 sort of puts us in a more robust position to go ahead with that stage 1 and streamlines the process through to stage 2.
Okay, thanks for that. Is it Marcus?
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually going to turn back to Richard. If we could just, because it is such a crucial point about sustainable travel modes, that this local plan moving forward will have ambition and aspiration, I would imagine, around alternative modes for commuting and all sorts of other reasons. I don't know whether, Richard, you can just give a feel for what this offers us at this stage 0 around those alternative modes and people's propensity and opportunity to shift to other modes, but also how that's tested and challenged, and how that factors into future stages in this, in terms of our ability and this plan's ambition to see people out of the cars and using other forms of transport.
Well, Marcus, so you're asking Richard the question. Okay, yeah, so go on, Richard, if you want to answer Marcus rather than ask me to book on. Yeah, that's right. Richard, do you want to respond? Yeah, no, it's fine. Would you like to respond to Marcus?
Yeah, sure, of course. So as set out in the metrics for the stage 0, there are a number of metrics that capture the public transport, the sustainable, the active modes. So that element of itself is picked up in this stage 0. But in terms of the full assessment, the process that we're going to follow is referred to as decide and provide, rather than predict and provide. So it's not necessarily a new way of thinking, but it's an approach that gives more credence to the active and sustainable modes in terms of determining the impacts of the assessment on the network. So it's not simply about providing more highways infrastructure, for example. It's about understanding the opportunities to tap into some of those more sustainable modes of travel to reduce that aspect, which is where you decide effectively your vision, and then you provide for it. So within the stage 1, stage 2 of the assessment, that will be fed into the process. We're working with National Highways and Active Travel England on this as well as others, and National Highways themselves have taken a keen interest in it and want this to be effectively a case study as a decide and provide approach. So basically everything that we set out in the methodology is geared towards this this sort of more forward way of thinking.
Okay, something Chair, of a bit of an exemplar. There's an opportunity here for Central Lancashire to be that exemplar. It'll be the first time, certainly in Lancashire, that this approach has been used, and it is certainly one of the more progressive approaches, and where we're being led to move away from traditional predict and provide approaches to building new road space and such like, to something which is, as I say, goes back to the aspirational ambition potentially within this.
Right. Okay, I'm okay with that. But there's a big job to do, and there's the infrastructure and the Highways Authority here in Lancashire. It's for all of us. It's the key thing every time we have development. So you got a big responsibility here on this one. So we're looking forward to that being developed. Michael, are you okay? We can move on from that. Is there any other questions before we move on? So we've got a tight agenda, Jav.
As obviously there's strict deadlines and time is critical, have you got enough expertise and resources to complete and meet your own deadlines?
So simple answer is yes. That's why we've brought Jacobs on board. So we've got consultant support to keep the programme.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Appreciate that. And Sabin, thank you very much. Okay, you can relax now. Right, let's go. As everyone's okay, we'll go to item number 7, which is the local plan update. And Zoe, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, local plan update. So I'm just going to run through this paper. So start off with paragraph 5, evidence base. So this just talks us through some of the key works that we've got going on with the evidence base. So the first one is the viability assessment of the local plan, and this is a consultant called Aspinall Verde that's leading on this piece of work. Obviously, it talks about there that the work commenced in January. We're now in February, and I can confirm that we had an initial discussion with Aspinall Verde a couple of weeks ago. They've asked for an inception meeting in the next 2 or 3 weeks with all of the partners from each of the 3 councils to start talking about the programme and how they envisage going about that piece of work and some of the key timeframes linked to some of the things that we've been talking about tonight. Just by way of refresh, the study will look at the cost implications of the plan, different typologies of development to ensure all ranges of development coming forward and the costs of those, and we'll consider special circumstances of particular sites, strategic sites, and also taking account of location, windfall developments, the size of sites, etc. The study will look at average costs and values, and those will be used to make assumptions about viabilities of those typologies. And the outputs of the assessment will include recommendations on what might be an appropriate benchmark land value, and then policy requirements for each typology. The work will include development appraisals to test the viability of a mix of proposed allocations against our policies, and we'll take account of other known costs, so things like infrastructure, developer contributions, etc. The work will also involve some engagement with our land promoters, RPs, other stakeholders, so it's quite an important piece of work, and obviously it will come post us developing our policies and identifying those sites as well. So it's quite an important piece of work, and that will go on for the next sort of 6 to 8 months into the programme. In terms of the housing study, paragraph 11, you will all know that the Central Lancashire Housing Study was published in 2022. We are commissioning DLP to undertake a light touch refresh of that work because a little bit of time has elapsed since then, and they will be looking at the sort of revised local plan period to cover 2023 to 24, and the evidence will provide us with updated housing need scenarios, and will inform the development and the finalisation of those strategic housing policies, which will include the distribution of housing across Central Lancashire. So that contract extension has been agreed, and we anticipate an inception meeting in the next couple of weeks with DLP. In terms of the retail study, I won't read all of those paragraphs out, but in a nutshell, there is a need for a light touch refresh. As I think we mentioned earlier, time has moved on. We've had a pandemic and shopping habits have changed somewhat. So the three councils recognise that there is a need for a light touch refresh on our retail evidence to inform our policies. So we are looking at commissioning a piece of work around that area. Unfortunately, White Young Green, who produced our previous studies, no longer exist, so we will be starting from scratch. And my colleagues at South Ribble are leading on that piece of work. Evidence base for the employment land. So BE Group are our consultants around this area, and they have recently produced a refresh in 2023, and the report was published in November. We have asked them to do a further piece of work just to reflect the revised planning local plan period for 2023 to 24. And it's expected that work will be published in the next couple of months or so, and obviously we'll bring that piece here to this group. The SFRA, this is JBA, who attended the last JAC. That work is progressing very well, and we expect the initial findings of the site assessments to come to the councils in early February. So quite an important piece of work in terms of informing site selection. Policy preparation. The good news on this is that we've now come up with a structure of our policies for the new local plan, and the three home teams working with some of our consultants have recently agreed kind of a distribution of that policy preparation work, and we envisage that will be complete as first drafts by the end of March. The policies will inform other key pieces of work, not least the viability work, the infrastructure development plan, the housing trajectory and supply, and also some of the work that we talked about around infrastructure. So it's quite important that we get on and deliver that policy drafting work. Other things to mention, duty to cooperate discussions, we'll be picking that up in the coming months and weeks to talk to some of our key partners and start to think about drafting statements of common ground. And also we're looking at the Gypsy and Traveller work as well, and just to see whether we need to do a light touch refresh of that work also. In terms of the LDS, I won't take away Emma's thunder. There's an item on that coming up. In terms of resourcing, we had envisaged recruiting a project officer for the local plan. The post has been out for advert. We've interviewed today, and the panel are yet to make a decision as to whether we're going to appoint on this occasion or not. But not least to say that is an important role and something that will help us to keep to our timetable, which is what we've been talking about. So we'll keep you in the loop on that. Site selection is an item on the agenda tonight for that. And then infrastructure, the IDP, this is a consultant called For Consulting that we've commissioned to undertake the IDP for us, and it is linked closer to the work that we've talked about around transport, but also other infrastructure as well, not least education and health. So obviously that will all feed into that work going forward. So that's my update. Happy to take questions, Chair.
Thank you, as always, Zoe. Very comprehensive update. Any questions? Okay, good. So you've done well there. Well done. Okay, we'll move swiftly on to item number 8, which is the NPPF framework update. And Ben, this is over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Benjamin Vickers, Principal at South Ribble. We have a new NPPF, which has been designed to incentivise plan making by putting in various provisions which should appeal to plan making councils. So the headline provision would be related to 5-year supply. So in this instance, when a local plan reaches a Regulation 18 or Regulation 19 stage, the new NPPF only requires councils to demonstrate a 4-year supply of housing against a 5-year requirement, as opposed to the previous 5-year requirement. There's also, as part of your 5-year supply requirement, you're also required to demonstrate a 5% or 10% buffer on top of your supply, meaning you'll need to demonstrate extra supply, conceptual supply, but now that's been removed, and only a 20% buffer is necessary, but only in instances where one fails the housing delivery test. In terms of housing requirements, there's been a softening in approach to housing requirements, and the paragraph 60 of the MPPF only necessitates councils to meet as much of their housing requirement as possible. And it's also been clarified that the standard method, which is the government's metric, the default metric for defining a housing requirement, is now a advisory starting point, or it's been clarified that this is an advisory starting point. I mean, actually, a lot of commentators will actually say that it's always been an advisory starting point, because this was previously written in guidance and has just been elevated to policy. But at face level, this seems to be quite a significant change. There's also been some amendments to promote various types of specialist housing. So, in particular, these will be retirement housing, small sites, particularly delivering self-build housing, and community-led housing as well, with the definition of community-led having a huge definition within the MPPF glossary. There's been changes to Greenbelt, and again, the test of Greenbelt has always been quite high, requiring demonstration of a test called exceptional circumstances. That remains, but there is now provision in the MPPF where to meet your housing requirement, it's no longer necessary to review Greenbelt boundaries. And finally, there has been an increase in the a greater emphasis on the importance of agricultural land or land involved specifically for food production. So this is something that we'll need to consider in much more detail than in previous iterations of the MPPF. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Any questions, please?
Sure.
Yep, Councillor
Thanks for the report, really interesting. Just let me get my head around it and let me get this right. If, say, a housing developer came to South Ribble and said, we want to build 100% affordable homes on the Greenbelt, we would not be able to turn it down if it was a suitable application. Is that the correct wording? Am I getting it right?
Well, for particular schemes, one would need to demonstrate what's called very special circumstances. So that is different to the test that is named exceptional circumstances. So colleagues will correct me if I'm wrong, but my recollection is there's no change to the test of very special circumstances.
Okay.
Chair, do you want me to try and just assist with that?
Yes, please.
Councillor Tomlinson, I think what you're referring to is if we received a speculative planning application for development in the Greenbelt. If that were the case, we would have to assess whether there were very special circumstances that would outweigh the Greenbelt harm. What Ben's referring to and has picked out in his report there relates to the allocation of land through a local plan. And as part of that, most authorities may consider doing a Greenbelt review to see whether they need to release Greenbelt land. And that's been a sort of common occurrence. But what the new MPPF is saying is that you don't necessarily have to release Greenbelt or look to Greenbelt release any longer. And obviously, as part of our local plan, one of the things we're perhaps not looking to do is to do any Greenbelt release this time. So if it's a planning application, it's assessed in an entirely different way than if we're actually preparing a plan.
Okay, thanks, Kath. Okay, Councillor Tomlinson. Just so people know, Councillor Tomlinson's the chair of South Ribbles Planning Committee. I know, I was going to compliment you, and he's a very enthusiastic chair. So thanks for your question. Okay. Okay, thanks very much, Benjamin, for your first, making your debut tonight with your first report. Look forward to hearing more from you. Right, item number 9, the LDS Local Development Scheme. Emma, you're back on.
So just to remind everyone, I'm Emma Price. I'm the Planning Policy Officer for the local plan. So the purpose of this report is to present the newly updated Local Development Scheme, or the LDS, as I'll refer to it for the rest of this. The LDS was appended to the report, so I hope everybody's had a chance to take a quick look at it. For context, an LDS provides a roadmap for stakeholders and community members to understand the process and timelines of plan making. And under Section 15 of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act, each authority is required to have an LDS, keep it up to date, and make it publicly accessible. The purpose of an LDS is to outline the geographical area that the plan will cover, and identify documents which will be local development and local plan documents, as well as identify which will be prepared jointly, and set out a timetable for the preparation and revision of the plan. The currently published LDS was approved in December of 2022 and set out a timetable for adoption by December of 2023, but regrettably this was not achieved, making the creation of this updated LDS necessary. It is important to note that the preparation of a local plan is fluid, and this is common planning practice to make changes to an LDS to ensure that the most up-to-date timetable is available. There have been several complex matters which have caused delays to plan making, such as the COVID-19 pandemic, recruitment of qualified planning officers, which is a national issue, several consultations of and changes to national planning policy, and long turnaround times for key evidence preparation. Since the previous LDS was adopted, there have been major changes to national planning policy and related legislation that directly impact plan making. The 3 Central Lancashire authorities are absolutely committed to submitting the local plan under the current plan making regime, and in order to do so, must meet the deadlines of submission to the Secretary of State by the 30th of June 2025 and adoption by the 31st of December in 2026. If we don't meet these deadlines, then we would have to submit under a new regime, which would have significant impacts. To date, work on the local plan has progressed steadily, with several consultations taking place, including the integrated assessment scoping, issues and options, and preferred options consultations. And work has progressed commissioning pieces of the required evidence base, and home teams and consultants have been working to complete detailed site assessment work. Developing the structure of the local plan and policy writing is now underway, as Zoe mentioned earlier. The previous LDS outlined that the preferred options consultation would take place in 2 parts. However, given the new statutory deadline of the 30th of June 2025, a Part 2 consultation is no longer feasible. Working with all of our stakeholders and consultants, we have prepared a revised local plan program and associated financial forecast, which takes into account all the progress we've made so far and updates to come. And in order to meet this deadline, again, we will not be doing a Part 2 consultation, and the focus will now be on implementing a program which moves to delivering the Regulation 19 publication version consultation, which would be in early 2025. Because of the time required to produce key pieces of evidence, such as flood risk, transportation assessments, etc., any consultation that would have taken place this summer would not have provided a meaningful update from what was consulted on previously. The publication version consultation, however, would provide the opportunity for people to engage with the local plan after this key evidence work has been completed and incorporated, which would make for more meaningful consultation. It would also provide the opportunity for the same level of engagement as before, both with in-person and online events. The report then goes on to provide a table of key dates for the production of the local plan, and the LDS itself goes into more detail about these key dates and evidence documents, providing a comprehensive list of all the documents that have been completed so far and are currently under progress. And the updated LDS also includes a risk assessment, which highlights issues that could impact the delivery of the local plan, including staff capacity, turnover and or absence, political delay, joint working, soundness of the plan, changing legislation, and finance and resource availability. And the next step for this LDS would be, if it's endorsed at this meeting tonight, it would be taken forward and presented at Chorley Council in April, Preston Cabinet in March, and South Ribble Council in March for approval. Any questions?
Okay, Emma, thanks very much. Well done again. To the floor, any questions for Emma, please? Okay, so no questions, no. Richard smiling there, but no questions. Well done. Right, and obviously the endorsement of this is via each council, Emma, isn't it? Lizzie, that's right, isn't it? It's not for here. Okay, all right. So it looks like your presentation's been endorsed. So well done. All right. Swiftly on to item number 10, which is the date of future meetings. So the next meeting of the JAC is scheduled for Thursday, the 28th of March, which is the day before Good Friday at Preston. Proposed meetings of the Central Lancashire Strategic Plan and Joint Advisory Committee for 2024-25 are as you can see there. I don't need to read them out. Does anyone have any questions or comments about these dates? No? Okay. We have obviously discussed earlier about maybe fitting some meetings in between, but not formal, more informal ones in terms of progress. So if those meeting dates are fine with everyone, we'll move on to item number 11, which is the exclusion of the press and public. So due to the nature of the remaining item on the agenda, this will be discussed confidentially. Do I have a proposer to vote to exclude the press and public for the remainder of the meeting, please?
Chair, propose.
Councillor Caleb Tomlinson, a second there. Councillor Alistair Brown there. So that's everyone in favour of that?